Dudes to Dads is a podcast to help men understand and navigate the transition of being a single dude into a family man. How do we make sense of it all? Well, we probably won't be able to, but let's go ahead and have some fun trying. And we're back.
We're back.
I'm Jason Kreidman.
I'm Alan Bush.
And this is Dudes to Dads.
Yes.
Alan, how are you?
Great.
Another week?
Another week, another dollar.
Oh, I knew you were going to. How did I know that?
Yeah, exactly.
Just because we know each other so well now. I think we've been doing this now. This is episode 60.
Yeah.
60.
60.
That's a lot of episodes.
It's a lot. It's a number of seconds in a minute. Number of minutes in an hour.
Wow.
Number of hours in 60 hours.
You're getting technical on me. I was just happy that we've done 60.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That is a lot of episodes. That's a
milestone.
lot of good content.
Yeah, for sure.
We've probably had, we've only had a handful of guests though.
Yeah.
You know, we need to have more guests.
Yeah.
Actually, we want to hear what the people listening have to say about
Sure.
that. If you could email us, podcast@dudestodads.com.
Yeah.
If there are topics that you feel like we should cover and we're not covering, I would love to hear that. I mean,
Yeah.
we get feedback often on the episodes that we have.
Right.
But it'd be interesting to get a little bit of feedback on the episodes we don't have.
Right.
In other words,
Yeah. Topics.
What do you want to hear?
Yeah,
Like, what do you want to listen
exactly.
to?
Yeah.
What do you want us to talk about, and what do you want to learn more about?
Because there's someone that wants to be on the show that wants
that's
to
true.
convey their message.
I think I had said before, is a lot of the topics come from my own desire to learn.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
wow, I really need to learn about this.
Yeah.
Let's do an episode about it because it will force me to research and start looking at it and get some good tips for
Very
myself.
cathartic to do the podcast.
So oftentimes then what happens is these topics are things that I really enjoy.
Sure.
And I really want to learn.
Yeah.
Very rarely is it like, nah, I'm just not interested in that topic, but
Yeah.
hey, we need to fill the spot, so let's do it.
Right.
That won't happen here.
That's the beauty of having your own show.
Yeah. You can just do what it is that you want to do.
Absolutely.
The last episode, we focused on negativity.
Right.
I think, the idea of what not to do versus what to do.
Yeah.
And I had thought about that. And because as from a parenting perspective, we've always learned you're supposed to tell kids what to do, not what not to do.
Sure.
But I think I'm kind of going in that direction again because I was thinking about today's show, and I'm still on that idea of negativity, but I'm switching it up a little bit. I read an article in, or on, I should say on, say in.
Yeah,
anymore.
I know. We're still thinking about magazines like
it was a
tangible
cassette
items.
tape. It was an 8-track. TheGoodMenProject.com, which is a great, I think we may have mentioned it before. It's a great resource. They actually have repurposed some of our content, which is great. They've taken ours and so they've been a good source. It's a really good information. They've got a lot of resources for men, all kinds of stuff. I mean, whether you're married or not or whatever, or you're a dad or not, it's really about men.
Right.
But there was an article that really hit home for me. It was written by a woman, Meadow, I want to say Devor.
Devor
is her name. Yeah, Meadow
first
Devor.
name's Meadow.
First name's Meadow. 10 things you should give up to be happy. And this one, it was really, really interesting. So I felt compelled to share this. And it hit home in too many places. Because, we often focus about a lot of us look at, what do we need to do to be happy? And this talks about what we need to give up in order to be happy instead of what do we need to try to do.
Right.
Well, I mean, it's kind of the same thing.
No,
in a sense.
but I get it. It's like kind of relinquishing.
These
versus
are things that we
action.
do that aren't making us happy.
Yeah.
And that's why I said it kind of hits home. And when I was reading this, I'm like, wow, this would be something great to share.
Yeah.
Actually, after I read it, I sent it out to some people that I know would appreciate it and stuff. It's one of those things where not social media wise, but just personally, like, hey, this was a good article. And I don't do that for like everything.
Right.
It was really, really good. So the first one was give up your need for control.
Yeah.
The idea of trying to control everything around you is taxing.
Oh, for sure.
It's very, very taxing.
Yeah.
And I can identify with that of, the idea of trying to control your environment. And, but it ends up essentially like creating anxiety.
Yeah.
And chaos.
Yeah.
Like you're trying to establish control, yet it creates chaos. Does that make sense?
No, I totally get it because I know a lot of people like this where they try to control their entire environment and every aspect of it, from start to finish. And I'm like, everything's going to be fine. I don't understand
just letting
why.
It be.
Yeah, it's okay. Let it happen to you. Right. Don't try to control what's going to happen. If you let it happen to you, you're going to enjoy it a lot more.
Well, it's amazing, as a parent, trying to teach our kids this. I had a situation the other day, actually, I just thought of that my son had a situation in which he was upset at.
Yeah.
And I asked him the question, can you control that? And I won't go into what it is, but basically, and he said no. And I said, of course, it's great when you're with, I'm great with other people, great at giving advice. It's just like, right, exactly. I wish I could do it myself. And but I recognize the situation. I said, like, can you control that? Cause he was upset and he's like, no, I can't. And I said, well, then what are you trying to control it for? Yeah. And I think it kind of made sense.
Yeah.
But that's something that we do all the time is we try to control things that are not controllable.
Yep.
There are things that sometimes are controllable and maybe we want to try to control them for that need. But basically when something is as an example, somebody else,
I know.
That's a big one.
I know.
You cannot control someone else. And we all are guilty of that.
Yep.
Whether it's a friend, a significant other, whatever. And it may just be some aspect or some incident or whatever, but we often try to control that.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there's probably a good psychology for why that is. And I'm not getting into that.
No,
but it's basically just give it up.
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. Yeah.
Give up the need to control. Next one, number 2, give up the need to be right. Mm-hmm. Whew. Well, how do we do that?
No, it's funny about
what's
that.
left then?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I know, exactly. Left? I'm not going to be left this time. No, I learned that kind of early on, I want to say, in probably my 20s, where I was like, I don't need to prove my point if I am right.
Yeah.
So if I'm right, I'll just let them think they're right. I'll be like, all right, well, if that's the way you think this should happen, then okay, then.
Well, I'm noticing that more in conversation where I would just say used to more, to try to make an effort to get my point across, and thinking, well, I'm right.
Yeah.
I know this is, and like in a conversation or an argument or something, and realizing like, does it really matter? Right. Like in the end, like what do you get out of that?
Yeah.
Like other than pissing the other person that you're talking to off,
right? Yeah.
What do you get out of that need to be right? It's like there's some self-fulfillment of just feeling good.
Ego boost. You want to feel like it's a control thing. I think it goes back to that control thing.
Right.
But then, I have the same, and I've learned to relinquish it, especially when it's like about something that's a fact and I know it's wrong what they're saying. And I'll be like, all right, that's what you believe. Then go ahead and, you can look it up.
Yeah.
You can prove me wrong. If I'm wrong, I'll admit it, but I don't think I'm wrong.
Yeah. Dr. Ellen, my mother, she used to say, would you rather be loved or right?
Yeah.
And a lot of those situations come down to that.
Yeah.
Like, are you trying to prove just to be right or do you want to be loved by somebody?
Yeah.
And often those are the two opposites.
Yeah.
Because you can get in an argument. And okay, you're going to be right, but you're going to really make somebody upset.
I know my grandfather and loved my grandma rest in peace, because at some point he just gives up the argument because she kind of nagged him a little bit and be like, well, it has to be, he just did this. And he'd be, okay, Millie, okay. Yep.
He wanted to be loved.
Yeah. He knew to she's going to be right. So he's going to be loved. So just leave it at that.
Right. But that's true. Like it's so true. Cause like we force ourselves to be that correct. And like, you're right. It's that ego or whatever it is, instead of thinking the bigger picture of like, you know what? If I just what is it to just let the other person think that they're right?
Exactly.
Like, just let them think that they're right.
Yeah, especially if it's just about something that's kind of subjective anyway.
Right.
Like, who cares?
Right. Next one, number 3, give up your criticisms. Mm-hmm. So this has to do with acceptance. It's give up criticisms of both yourself and others. And we've talked about that too, where, when you are criticizing other people, it's obviously that you're critical of yourself. Mm-hmm. But it just sort of deteriorates everything. You know, it's you're really focusing on what's wrong again, rather than focusing on what's right.
Yeah. I would agree with that. Actually, I do have, tendency to back off of being too hypercritical of people, but there is that part of me that's slightly cynical. So when things aren't fair, then that's when I get super critical. And then I just go off on the world at that point, like what's wrong with society. But then I'll call back and be like, oh, no, that person's fine.
Well, at least you come back to Earth.
Exactly.
Right.
Interplanetary journey, then circle back to Earth. Yeah.
Totally. Number 4, give up your need for people to understand you.
Speak in your own language.
Well, that's interesting. It's it is similar to wanting to be right.
Yeah.
But like, do you really what is the value of somebody else understanding you?
Understand. You know? Yeah. And I guess that you have to take that with a grain of salt. I can't really agree with that 100%, but I do understand the point they're trying to make here.
Well, so that may mean that you don't have that as that's not something as strong. Because for me, that's not I don't feel misunderstood.
Right.
That's not I mean, I have plenty of these other ones on the list I'm dealing with, but for that one, I don't feel like people misunderstand me. That's not something that I identify with. I'm not saying they don't.
But that's a good way that's actually the perspective I did not take, is that I guess I do feel understood, so I don't really have the issue per se, but I guess from the perspective of feeling the need that people need to understand you and they don't.
Right.
Where a lot of people do, they just don't understand me. Mom doesn't understand the way I act. It seems like a very almost teenager-ish thing to think about. So I guess in that perspective, then I totally agree with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Let's see. Next one, give up your desire to be liked.
Yeah. Just walk into places, smack people in the head. Why not?
Yeah, that's interesting.
No, but and again, it goes circling back to the whole, it's the desire for it. It's not whether or not you are liked. It's that if someone doesn't like you, okay, well, they don't like you. I had, this, I'll give you an example of this. It was a friend talking about my former roommate, and that friend was ex-girlfriend, was like, yeah, he was talking mess about you or something, that you are a hermit and you don't like to do such and such to go out. And I go, yeah, I am a hermit. It's okay. I don't care what he thinks.
Right.
I really don't. I mean, he's a good guy. I don't have no problem with him whatsoever.
You a hermit? But you're like Mr. Social Activity.
Now,
I know.
Now.
Oh, maybe you weren't
at that time. I wasn't, as I was broke at the time.
Oh, gotcha.
But that, it didn't matter to me what that person thought, because I'm like, he has his opinions. I don't care. Right. It doesn't stop me from getting along with him on a kind of some fundamental level. And if someone I don't know doesn't like me, that's their loss.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people say that, but I think there is, I'm not saying that you don't believe that. I'm just saying I think a lot of people do say that similar thing, but in the end we do things and act a certain way so that people do like us, because it does feel good.
For sure.
Let's say it's in the workplace or something, you want to be liked in general.
Yeah.
I think it's funny, salespeople have a high need to be liked.
Sure.
And that's a trait that's just as part of being a salesperson.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it depends on sort of your social circle, your environment, that kind of thing. And of course your self-esteem. You know?
That's true.
Or not only self-esteem, but self-acceptance of, the lower that is, the more and the higher the desire we have to be liked.
For sure. Yeah.
But and even going further, being liked, you can broaden that or maybe deepen it to saying, the desire to be loved.
Sure. Yeah.
Everybody has the desire to be loved.
Absolutely.
Being liked and loved are a little bit different, in that aspect.
But they're part of the same.
But that's one of the human needs. I mean, we all have that desire.
Absolutely.
So from a very, small kid to an adult, you really do miss out if you don't have that. I mean, there's so many pieces of your life that would be missing.
Right.
If you don't feel that way.
Yeah.
Because being loved or feeling loved is just crucial to well-being.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, I kind of, there's a line there of liked and wanting to be loved. And so I get it. Because I don't think of myself thinking I've got to get everyone's approval and really want to be liked. But at the same time, I don't want to be disliked.
No, that's a good point too. And there's still part of me that feels that way too. Like if someone doesn't like me, I'm probably going to brood over it. Why? Like, what is it? Why they don't like me? I mean, again, if it's someone I don't know or I don't really care, I'm like, whatever. But if it's like a coworker or a friend or somebody that just for whatever reason just takes some disliking to you, and it's like, what did I do to them? And then you try to figure out what it is, and after a while, you just have to let it go.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Next one, give up your resistance to change. Mm-hmm. Change is good.
Change. Yeah.
Resistance really only creates suffering, is what they've said.
It's a very Buddhist philosophy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
change is inevitable.
Yeah, I do you have trouble with change? I don't feel like I do. As being an entrepreneur, I mean, you kind of have to.
Yeah,
you have
in
to
our industry,
change.
Basically, Google changes things every 5 seconds, so we have to kind of adapt. That being said, there's sometimes I do like the status quo, and especially when things are really good, it's like, let's not disrupt this anymore. But then inevitably, I'll give you an example of this. The town I live in, I pretty much knew 20 people that were in my neighborhood that were friends and people I could go have beers with or whatever it is, or go to events with. And I would say about 95% of them have moved out of that fairly within this year. Only 2 or 3 are left in that area.
Right.
And so it's a weird thing now, because I used to be able to walk around town and know a bunch of people or call someone up and just walk to the next near whatever place we were going to get something to eat, whatever it is. They're all gone.
Oh,
and
wow.
it's just weird to me now. But yeah, it's inevitable. It's going to change. If they didn't change, then I would have.
Yeah, the resistance to change, that is interesting. I feel like it's funny because I'm a very routine person.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we can broaden this, where if I have a plan, I have a pretty high expectation that plan is supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And that when it changes, I do get a little bit uncomfortable.
Right.
And so I would probably do resist that in that aspect. So if it can be something small, like, hey, at this time we're going here and doing that. And then the time comes whoa, what do you mean? We weren't planning doing that. So I can see that I have that resistance. Yeah. Whereas instead of just going all right, that's cool.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that's all the time, but I think my initial gut reaction is that resistance, I think.
Yeah. Sure.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I can totally see that.
Yeah.
So you got to, give up your resistance to change and kind of, I don't want to say go with the flow.
Hey, man.
But it is.
Take a chill feel, man.
Yeah. It's, if you can go with the flow, it's a lot easier.
Yeah. If you're adaptable, bend like the bamboo in the wind,
right.
That type of thing.
Well, yeah, we won't go there. This kind of goes with the, wanting to be liked, giving up trying to please others.
Yeah.
I think this is something as a dad, you'll see in many kids that are trying to please their parents.
Yeah.
This happens all the time. As children, I should say, we try to please others a lot.
Sure.
That is a learned behavior. So I'm gonna get a little deep on you.
Okay.
The trying to please others is a learned behavior because it's not coming from within.
Yes.
So as parents, we teach our children often, hey, you'll get a reward, you'll be loved. There's all kinds of things, you're better because you're doing this,
right,
or that kind of thing. And so a lot of the parenting that we talk about, techniques and things like that, is focusing on having it come from within. Mm-hmm. So, the idea of, as an example, my children accomplishing something because it's going to please me, I'd really want to be conscious of that it doesn't matter what the outcome is.
Right.
Because otherwise the children grow up wanting to always please because they get that feedback.
Yes.
Does that make sense? It's kind of...
Yeah. They're not doing it for the sake of intrinsically.
Right.
They're only doing it to get the reward.
Intrinsically, yeah. So when you, at a very small age, if you can't, granted, this is a lot of my mentor, Susie Walton's philosophies, is if you don't do that and you teach them, like we said, intrinsically to get the reward.
Right.
How did that feel? look at what you did.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff, that they are realizing that internally it just feels good.
Right. Yeah.
And they are not going to try to please others.
Right.
Because they're not going to get a reward. That's not the reward. The reward isn't by pleasing other people. The reward is in how it feels inside.
Sure.
So that really hits for the parents. I think as a dad, you've got to kind of see that. Yeah. And you don't want your kids going around trying to please everybody.
Right.
And that's just, we're guilty of that all the time, because we're like, clean up your room and then we can do this, that. And it's like, because I'll be happy if you do this, I'll be in a good mood. Yeah. And it's like, that's, it's hard to police that all the time, but I can see like in the big scheme, you kind of want to curb it.
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. So you want it to come from within. I get that.
Yeah. So next one, give up your attachment to the past. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see that. I mean, the past can often stifle you. Mm-hmm. If you don't like the present, change it. Yeah. Create the future.
Yeah.
I in
Open
reading
that present.
Totally. Well, in reading a lot of relationship stuff, advice, that's a big one that happens in relationships, where you get into a situation and the spouse will bring up, or the significant other or whatever will bring up something that happened in the past. Yeah. It's like, why are you bringing that up? Like, well, because it was unresolved or whatever reason. But we often focus on the past. Oh, yeah. And we say like, well, remember you did this. And it's like, that was then.
Yeah.
Like,
that's not what we're 3 minutes ago. Why are you bringing that old stuff?
Right. We're not talking about that. We're talking about this. So I think too, as a parent, going back and rehashing some of the stuff that maybe you did wrong. Maybe you didn't act correctly as a parent, that kind of stuff. You certainly can't beat yourself up for those things, instead of saying, okay, it happened, it's done. Yeah. How do we move this thing forward?
Well, especially past things that kind of harkens back to some other things where, things that you had no control over. A lot of people will hone in on things that happened in their childhood and all that other things. And those are the things that do shape us because I'll speak to that till the cows come home. And, but one of the things that changed my outlook and my happiness for real was looking at the past and going, hey, that doesn't affect me who I am now. Right. I'm affecting me who I am now. And therefore I'm using the past as an excuse or as a crutch or whatever it is, rather than learning from it, evolving and moving forward towards the future.
Oh, that's great.
And that was a huge problem for me up until I realized there was a problem for me. And then I was like, oh, right, it's me.
Well, yeah. And you can't move forward unless you let go of the past.
Exactly.
So, all we have is sort of the present moment and the future.
Yeah, it's an anchor, and it should be more of a navigation tool.
It's so important. It's another cliche about living in the moment, though. Yeah. It's all we have. We do have to think about the future. Yeah. In certain instances, especially with our children, but. As a dad too, of like whether it's spending the time with your kids or your spouse or whatever, about really being in the moment and enjoying that moment. Right. You just can't say it enough. It's like, the time passes so quickly. I look back, my kids are 5 and 7 now. It's like, people who have like teenagers, or when they leave, then they leave the house because they're going away to college or something. They say it, but you don't believe it. Like, that's 18 years. That's like a long, long time. But it's like, even now I can say it's gone by so fast, even though when you were in it, there's so much going on. And there's,
I went to an event fairly recently, and it was a walk for Huntington's disease, actually. Oh, right. And one of my friend's brother has it, and her dad, passed away of it. But so I've known this family for a while, since I was in college. One of the guys that was with us had a dog, and I was like, "Oh, what's your dog's name?" It's all big. I was, "Oh, cute. Oh, what was your name again?" He goes, "You know me." And he said, "I'm Michael," and I'm like, "Oh my God, I remember when you were born."
Right.
And he had a goatee, and he was, I'm like, "What? Oh my God, how much time had passed?"
I know.
Oh, that's how long I've known you. Yeah. So it's
freaky.
Taken aback.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's freaky when you especially if it's somebody you grew up or. Yeah. Well, I can give you an example too. There's my wife has a really good friend she went to nursing school with, and the daughter is now having her baby shower this weekend. Oh, the daughter, and she's mid-20s, or 30. I don't even know how old. Yeah. But like. She remembers when she was like just almost born. Yeah. It was like, and it's crazy.
It's so crazy.
It's really crazy. Not born, but she was really young, and it was like, now to like see that as an adult, how fast that time goes, and you really don't realize it. So we're getting off a little bit of the tangent, but
you're right.
basically of giving up your attachment to the past, and whether that is in an argument, whether that is just your life and how you're living it, and saying, well, this is how my life was, and this is how then it has to be.
Yeah.
The moment is now.
Yeah.
Like to change is now. And we've got a whole bunch of stuff on procrastination. That's we can help you with that. So that's the other one.
Yeah.
Number 9, give up your need for acknowledgement. This kind of goes with being liked too.
No, but yeah, it's a slightly different perspective, but it is, like you said, pretty much hand in hand with that.
Yeah, it's, he says we chase after love, approval, and appreciation because we think that this acknowledgement will help us feel happier, loved, and more at peace.
Yeah.
But the pursuit of these things causes immense stress and suffering, which is true.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, did I say he said? She said.
She says, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. I can agree with that. I think a lot of times we want credit and we want to take the credit for things that we are doing right, and we want to be, acknowledged. And I don't know. The pursuit of that, I don't necessarily think is a bad thing, but I feel like a lot of these things, if it's done in moderation, it's okay. But if you overdo it and if you're constantly worried about it, it causes way too much angst.
Well, the acknowledgement is interesting. So I went through a course and the lesson was to go fishing versus feeding the fish.
Uh-huh.
And the idea behind that was when you go fishing, you're expecting to get something out of it.
Right.
That whether that's the acknowledgement, whether it's like something, let's say you're doing it for your kids or your spouse or whatever, you're doing something with the idea that you're going to get something in return.
For sure.
Whether that is acknowledgement, love, affection, recognition, something.
Yeah.
Instead of feeding the fish, which just means, hey, I'm just doing it to feed the fish.
Right. Yeah.
Like the fish need to be fed. So I'm doing it.
So I'm feeding them.
I'm not trying to go and get something out of it.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. It was an interesting analogy because I was literally, casting a fish, iron, like you could, the teacher was talking about this. And it was just a great analogy.
Yeah.
I want to say, I want to give it credit. It was from the course called Freedom to Be, which I had mentioned, I talked about before.
For sure.
Yeah. I'll put a link in there because I would give them some credit.
Sure.
But yeah, it's just the idea of, really just doing things because.
Right.
And
for the sake of doing them rather than expecting a reward out of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's just that's a big one, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the last one is, you can see it's a little late.
Yeah, right.
As I start, stuttering, and give up your distractions, which how much more can we talk about that?
Oh yeah, we've been all over that, especially with the internet and all that other things.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff of electronics and everything else. Mm-hmm. You really have to make that a conscious decision.
Yeah.
Of removing the distractions, whether they are physical, mental, whatever.
Yeah.
Distractions will keep you from being happy.
For sure.
And that's really, really important. So I want to just briefly go through these again, because I kind of want to make sure they're fresh in my mind as well.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So these are the 10 things you should give up to be happy. First one, give up the need for control.
Yeah.
Second, give up your need to be right.
Yep.
Third, give up your criticism, and that's both of yourself and of others. Give up your need for people to understand you.
Mm-hmm.
Give up your desire to be liked. Give up your resistance to change. Give up trying to please others.
Mm-hmm.
Give up your attachment to the past. Give up your need for acknowledgement, and give up your distractions. Is there one that hits the most for you?
The distractions one, actually. Because it was last, but also because I think it
There's
does.
a psychology of that.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
Mine's the first one. That give the need up for control.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's interesting. What caught my attention too of the article is, the idea, if we want to be happy, we've got to give up stuff rather than always trying to obtain.
Yes.
It was an interesting concept of just from the writing perspective.
Of course.
Give these things up. Make it easier on yourself by just letting these things go.
Yeah. No,
it's less stuff. It's not something that I have to do.
It's taking weight off your shoulder.
Right.
That's what the
as difficult as it is.
It is, and it's a lot of times hard to relinquish things.
Right.
And relinquishing control, relinquishing anything. It's but it is a weight off of you, so it makes you feel lighter. It allows you to progress further.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. If you guys have anything to add, send an email, podcast@dudestodads.com. Also, love reviews.
Yeah, we need some reviews. Get them on iTunes and Stitcher, and even on the website itself, but preferably on iTunes and Stitcher.
Yeah.
And if you want to hit us up on social media, go to Twitter @DudesToDads, and Facebook is DudesToDads.com.
Yep.
And yeah, of course, the podcast @DudesToDads.com.
Yeah, and any feedback, we welcome it. We would really appreciate the listeners, or a fan call it fan base, audience base is growing.
All you dads and dudes out there.
I love seeing it. It's like, going and looking at that stuff, and seeing that. There's more and more people being hit by it and touched by it and sharing it. And so we really appreciate the love.
Yeah.
Any other final thoughts?
No, that was good. I like that. It's very cathartic to talk about this stuff.
Talk about happiness. Yeah. I now need to focus on happiness when I go home.
Exactly.
The sun is almost up.
Yeah.
So just kidding. It is late.
It's not that late.
It's late. I think my kids are definitely asleep.
Yeah. So, it's almost past your bedtime.
Which I can't, feel guilty for it. I can't be a perfect, each day is one day at a time. So today, maybe I wasn't a wonderful dad because I wasn't there. But guess what? Tomorrow morning, I will be.
You'll be bright and early.
I'm going to get them up very early. So with that, thank you, everybody. And thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
And we will see you next week.
See you next time.